Well, as you would imagine, I do have quite a few fragrances that we haven't covered that are just great for springtime that aren't getting a lot of airplay or a lot of love this spring from what I can see. So I felt like it was my duty to highlight some of these fragrances. And in today's video, I'm bringing you 7 of the more underrated springtime fragrances that I have in my collection. So stay tuned. So before we get going, I did get my new microphone in. I did get a Comica V30 Pro. So I did have that old Vivitar that was given a lot of clipping and feedback. And then the last couple of videos was the onboard microphone, which based on the feedback from you guys wasn't that bad. So I'm hoping this audio will be a lot better. Yet to be determined. I'm sure you guys will let me know. Let's get into these fragrances. One that is great for the spring, for the fall, and even for the summer, depending on where you live, because it does have a bit of freshness. Calling all ginger lovers, let's talk about AZZARO Ginger Lover. This is one that I did a full review on last year. Probably the most popular flanker when it came out anyways of this particular line of flankers. But the hype killed over on this one. This is one that I just don't really see anybody talk about much anymore. And it's kind of disappointing because it's actually built for spring in my opinion. That ginger note adds that crisp, bright, fresh opening that has that bit of fresh spice. There's some fresh grassy vetiver in here. It's a very simplistic note breakdown. But it's a beautiful fragrance that performs very well. Has a pretty good compliment factor to it. Performs, I mean, it checks a lot of boxes if you like ginger fragrances. So some of you might be like, hey man, this was hyped a while back. How could it be underrated? The hype kind of fell off from what I can see. That's why I say it's kind of underrated, because there's not a lot of talk about how it's great for this spring. And it really is, in my opinion. You know, shame on me that it didn't make any of my spring list either, because it could have technically went in the cheapie list. Wild Mint actually made it instead, because I like minty fragrances this time of year, don't get me wrong, but ginger's right up there with a dominant note type for certain fragrances that really works well in the spring, because you get that crisp, bright aspect of what ginger can bring to a fragrance, and it adds that little bit of fresh spice that I know I personally love. But great performer. People are gonna like the way you smell. You're gonna like the way you smell. It's underrated these days. AZZARO Ginger Lover. You want to talk about a flanker that gets no love? I'm kind of disappointed it doesn't get more love, because I actually like it quite a bit. And you know, shame on me for not wearing. I have so many fragrances. You know, that's the downside. That's the burden of having so many. Is great fragrances like YSL L'Homme Le Parfum will get pushed aside when they deserve more love and more wear. That's why I bought a smaller bottle when I bought it, because you know, these things just kind of sit on the shelf sometimes, unless I'm really digging them at the time. It's just a richer, bluer version, essentially, for lack of a better term, of YSL L'Homme. Average to slightly above average performer. If you're bored with blue fragrances, I could see why this one's a pass for you. But if you love a good blue fragrance, like I do, this is actually a decent pickup, especially if you can get it for a good price from a discounter. I did pick this up from Fragrance Net last year. I forgot exactly how much I paid for it. It wasn't too expensive. These YSL flankers don't really get too cheap. You're always going to pay, you know, that average price point in the 50s to 70 some odd dollar range, depending on the bottle size and the popularity of the flanker, or how many they produce, so on and so forth. All those different factors. But that doesn't change the fact that this is built for spring. It's got a lot of density where it might be a little much for super hot 100-degree, super high humidity days in the south, but these mild springtime days that are in the 70s during the day, this is built for that. It's going to shine. It's got enough power to have a little bit in the trail where somebody can smell you when you walk by, yet enough longevity and to really get through your day, and it's fresh enough to really enjoy in the middle of the day, yet warm and dense enough to be a little bit more geared towards the nighttime if it's still on your skin going into the evening. Actually quite a lovely fragrance that got kind of a generic tag when it came out, and I understand why. Like I said, if you have a lot of blue fragrances, I could see why this would be a pass. But if you don't, and you like this particular line, or say you really like the original Homme but newer bottles just don't perform up to par with what you would expect or what your old bottle used to do, maybe give this one a try. Is it just the stronger version of Homme? No, it's a little different, but I think it's a little different in a good way. Again, that's YSL Homme, the Le Parfum Flanker. Another one that I did a full review on last year that's just essentially a fresher version of Dolce & Gabbana The One. Of course, I'm talking about Dolce & Gabbana The One Gray. And that is essentially what it is. If you like wearing Dolce & Gabbana The One on dates and dinners and evenings and special events with your lady, you really, really dig that fragrance at your go-to, this can be the one you wear to work. Because it still has that sweet, ambery, tobacco-y type of scent DNA while being just a lot fresher. Performs about what and what with Dolce & Gabbana The One. It's not spectacular, you know, 4 to 6 hours depending on your skin. I get more in that 5 to 6 hour range on my skin. It's not a real heavy projector. It's just right. It's just right if you're not the type of person that likes a really loud fragrance. This one doesn't sit too close to the skin, but it's not really pushing out off of your skin and just grabbing somebody from 10 feet away. Now, if they're downwind from you, different story. But if you're indoors, well circulated area, when you walk by, there's a nice little mild trail. This can turn some heads for you. And like I said, the person I suggest really look at this one is somebody that really likes Dolce & Gabbana The One. That's kind of a go-to for them for date and evening scenarios. And maybe you'd like to translate that into your work day, your days off, but you feel like that's just a little too dressy, a little too date nighty for you. Dolce & Gabbana The One Gray will fill that void and is that fragrance that you might be looking for. Underrated too. Nobody really talks about it. Doesn't get a whole lot of love here and there, but Dolce & Gabbana The One Gray, very underrated for spring. This fragrance gets no love, and I get why, but I don't get why at the same time, because for it being lavender and birch, it's like a dark soapy fragrance. You know, the night name is because of the birch, but it is just a soapy, lovely fragrance. Boss Bottled Night. Nobody talks about this fragrance much, and look, they pop up all over. I saw a 200 ml at TJ Maxx the other day. It wasn't the price I would pay. It was $60. You can get a 200 ml for, you know, high 40s on Fragrance Net, discounters, places like that. But this is underrated. A 100 ml tester with one of those little tester caps, not necessarily the same cap, $25, $27, $28, something like that. This is a steal of a fragrance. And don't let the name confuse you. It's absolutely not just geared towards the night. It's kind of a do-it-all work fragrance, casual daytime fragrance that can work at night, because the birch adds just a little bit of dark smokiness to that super soapy smell that it has, because this is a super soapy fragrance. If you like soapy fragrances, don't overlook this one like everybody else does, because it is basically just a slightly darker themed soapy fragrance. Is how you could look at it. The bottle's dark, but the scent is not. Don't get detoured by this one. If you see this one out at a rack store, hell, this 50 ml came from a TJ Maxx during one of our Biloxi trips a few years ago. I paid $20 for this 50 ml. Taking me forever to go through it, just like it does with all my other bottles, but doesn't change the fact that it's a great soapy fragrance that just gets no love. Nobody talks about it. And if you like that style of fragrance, you should check this out. It's cheap. It's an average performer, you know, nothing special, 5-6 hour type of stuff like some of the other ones we've discussed so far in this video. But man, I hate that it gets no love, because it's a decent fragrance. Like I said, as long as you like soap. Boss Bottled Night. Super, super underrated for the spring. So when it comes to HAPPYLAND Studio, you know, El Gudo, Paisley Sky, Green Irish Tobacco, they get all the love. They're popular. They're great fragrances. I get why they get all the love. They're some of my favorites too. But this is another one of my favorites that not too many people give any love. And it's kind of like a foundational fragrance from the house, in my opinion. Of course, I'm talking about Barbershop. from HAPPYLAND Studio. This is gorgeous. And then on top of that, Frank over at Strike Gold Shave did a collaboration with EJ with a shave soap and aftershave splash that is my favorite shave set that I own. You know, more so than any of my other ones that I own. And I own them from a bunch of different companies, a bunch of really good artisans. You take this fragrance mixed with that shave set and you can't go wrong. Masculine. It's barbershop featuring a bunch of leather. There's a beautiful orange in here. It is a little bit of a heavier wear for the springtime. Definitely cooler springtime type of weather. But even those warmer days that are in the mid to high 70s, you can still pull this one off. Just go a little easy on the sprays, because if you know anything about the atomizers EJ uses on these stock bottles, it's big sprays. I don't know how well the camera picked it up. I see the particles floating all around right here. God, that smells so good. You want something masculine that takes a traditional style fragrance, a barbershop fragrance, hence the name, and just makes it as good as it possibly can be by adding extra orange and this beautiful leather. And it's a beast on top of that. HAPPYLAND Barbershop. Look, it doesn't get enough love. It really doesn't. EJ makes some fantastic fragrances. It's hard to go wrong with just about anything from the house. Amberland, the Shadowland, the newest one, Faux du Fafa. I mean, EJ puts out great stuff, but don't overlook one of his originals that is just awesome for the spring that doesn't get enough love. That's HAPPYLAND Barbershop. One of the best. Speaking of orange, bitter orange and stuff like that, let's mix a little bit of suede. Obviously much more synthetic than the last fragrance, but this one pops up a lot at the rack stores. TJ Maxx, Marshalls especially. You know, a lot of Penguin fragrances show up in premium blend, ice blend, all these different blends. What about some love for original blend? You know, this is an understated casual fragrance that has gotten me a lot of attention. This is one of my aunt's favorite fragrances, actually, because oddly enough, a lot of the times when I wear this was usually when I would go visit my aunt and uncle, and every time I'd get a hug from my aunt, she would make sure to let me know how good I smell. Is it synthetic? Sure. It's a cheap Penguin fragrance, but it's a very, very pleasant, bitter orange, suede, relaxing type of scent. Nothing serious, no big powerhouse, 4 or 5 hour fragrance, you know, below average performance, but nothing too bad. Below average projection, you know, out there in the first 30-45 minutes, then it sits pretty close to the skin, but kind of a pencil shavings vibe. I've had some people tell me about this one in the past, and I can kind of get that a little bit, but I feel like it's got a little bit more character than that, believe it or not. This one's overlooked and underrated, and it's great for the spring. Spring, early fall is where I would say the target seasons and temperatures, climate settings, essentially, where this is going to shine, because there's fresher options that I would prefer in higher heat, because that's what really shines in the hot summer. So in the milder spring and autumn days, I think this is probably the hardest Penguin fragrance to beat. I don't see myself recommending another one over this one, to be completely honest with you. I do like Rocks, very good. Reserve, Nightcap, they're all good. Premium blend, geared more towards the summer. Iconic blend, geared more toward the summer. This is fantastic for spring and nobody talks about it. Next time you see this one at the rack stores, they're only 15 bucks usually. Sometimes you can find them on clearance for less than that. You might end up loving this one. Give it a shot. It's something different. It doesn't smell like everything else. And I really enjoy it. It's one of my absolute favorite fragrances from the House of Penguin. Again, that's Penguin, the original blend. Last but not least, you know, this one had some hype as a pretty good spring and summer fragrance a few years ago when it came out. And the hype kind of killed over, and it's fallen into this underrated territory. One of the lesser talked about flankers in the BVLGARI Man line. I'm talking about BVLGARI Man. This is Black Cologne. This is a damn good fragrance, guys. It's a light, airy wear that features the signature tuberose and some rum in here. You know, it's got a boozy nuance to it that really stands out. This is one of the better smelling fragrances in this line. It doesn't have all the spices of Man in Black. It doesn't have that cactus note of Man Extreme. It's got the booziness, take away the spices, add a nice citrus medley in here with that signature tuberose, and you have Man Black Cologne. And for being a flanker named cologne, it doesn't act like an eau de cologne. It acts more like a solid eau de toilette, giving that 5 to even 7 hours of performance, where if you spray your clothes, I have gotten around 7 hours out of this one in the past wearing it. It's a damn good fragrance. You can find gift sets pop up at the rack stores. That was how I got this one. And they're always at the discount sites where they carry the line, and I don't know if I've ever seen them sell out of stock before, because it's underrated. 2018 summer, it got some hype, but since then it's kind of just trickled off, and I feel like it's time to bring it back. More people need to show this some love. There's more people coming into this hobby and passion that we have with fragrances. More people need to try this one because it's a stunner. It's great for the warm weather. It takes a beloved DNA, twists it a little bit, makes it its own fragrance, and really shines. Again, that's BVLGARI Man, the Black Cologne Flanker. Well, that's the 7 I wanted to cover with you today. And until next time, do me a real quick favor. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, because I do appreciate all the feedback, and I love hearing from you guys. How many of these fragrances do you have? Have you been wanting to try? Let me know. Let me know down in the comments. Are you fans of any of these? Is this stuff you've been wanting to try? You know my motto, there's never a better time than right now. If there's something you've been wanting to try that you have yet to get your nose on. It's just how I feel about it. I love me some fragrances. And until next time, we'll say if you get your hands on any of the 7 discussed in this video and you give them a spray now, pretty confident you'll thank me later. Have a good one, guys.